So in the last video, I demonstrated some extruded base bosses, and in this video I'm going to demonstrate extruded cuts, which work very similarly to extruded base bosses. So like normal, I'm going to start by creating a new part file, and I'm going to select this part. You'll note I'm in the advanced mode, and so this part template I happen to know is set in millimeters. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new part. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to demonstrate that keyed shaft that I had demonstrated in class. But in this case, I'm actually going to only do the key part through part of the shaft. And I'm going to do an extruded cut for that. But first I'm going to start by just creating the shaft, and in this one I'll just do a solid shaft. So I'm going to create a sketch, circle, and add a smart dimension to it. So I'm going to make this shaft 30 millimeters. And then I'm going to unselect smart dimension, and I'm going to hit exit sketch. And I'm going to extrude it for a good 250 millimeters, okay? So we can see here our shaft. You'll note this is a blind extrude, and I'm just going to hit check. Okay, so now we get to the extruded cut. So this is our second feature that we're putting in. Of course, an extruded cut can never be the first feature because you can't cut when there is nothing there. So we're going to select extruded cut, and just like extruded base boss, we get this message here asking us to select an existing sketch or a plane or a face to create the sketch on. So in this case, I'm going to select this end face here. So Solidworks is now going to create a sketch on that end face. And as I have in the past, I'm going to add these reference lines, watching for them to actually connect to that center point so that the auto constraints will be added. But knowing that even if the auto constraints aren't added, I can always go back and change them later or add them later. So I'm going to then change these to construction lines or reference lines. So now I'm going to add the key. So I'm going to do this with a corner rectangle. I could also do it with a center rectangle, but I'm going to just go ahead and do it with a corner rectangle for this one. And I'm just going to draw a rectangle there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and dimension this now, just like we have in the past. So I'm just going to pick some dimensions for this. Keys are often quite small, so I'm going to go ahead and do 3 millimeters. You'll note since I did a corner style rectangle, it's not going to automatically stay centered around this line. So I'm going to use my next dimension to automatically center that. And I'm going to do that by inserting an equation into the smart dimension. So I'm going to select my vertical reference line and then select this edge here. And then I'm going to say equals, and then I'm going to select the overall width and divide by 2. And so no matter what I change this dimension to, 3.5, this will automatically update to be whatever half this value is, and thus the box will stay centered. Change this back to 3. So now we need to set the height and the location. So obviously the height is going to, height being this dimension here, is going to extend off into this open space here, and that's okay. So let's start by dimensioning from the horizontal construction line to set how deep we want the key to go. So I'm going to set this at, we'll go 12.5. So that looks pretty good. Since we're not actually designing a key, we can just pick this since this is just a demo part. So I can actually leave this height totally undimensioned as long as it's overhanging, but I'll go ahead, just for the sake of completeness, I'll go ahead and make this 5. You can see it's clearly overhanging, so that's going to be fine. So now I'm going to exit the sketch, and let's look at what we have here. So it's currently set to blind, and that's great, but it is going pretty far. So let's suppose we actually don't want to run the key all the way. Let's suppose we just want to run it for the first 25 millimeters. So we can do that with blind like so, and it works well. But there's a couple other things we could do. So one thing we can do is we can do, if we did want it to go all the way through, we could of course do through all. We can also say up to surface if we was another way to do all the way through. And then we can do offset from surface. So let's go ahead and select the end surface. And then what it's going to do is it's going to calculate this offset from whatever that end surface is. So this was originally 250 millimeters. So let's go ahead and say 225, and that gets us the same blind cut that we had before. Now in this case, of course, it would have been easier just to do a blind cut, but in some cases, you will find this a more convenient method, so I wanted to show it to you. All right, so I'm going to hit check, and now we have a little keyhole here, and that is an example of an extruded cut. All right, in the next video, I am going to talk about revolves.